we are going to study about the keylogger and how to make it with the Python in this lecture. So for that we have to make use of a Python package, that is Pynput. So Pynput is the Python package or the module that will allows us to control and monitor the keyboard and mouse action. So for that we have to first install that package on your machine. So first of all, let me just open my command prompt and use this Python package manager, which is pip here, and I'll just say pip install Pynput. So this is the package that is going to just, it is input, and this is going to just be installed on our machine to control and monitor the keyboard as well as the mouse action. So let me just install it real quick, and I have already installed, so I don't need to install twice. So in your case you should install this Pynput, which is the module. So next thing what you need to do is open your browser, and let me just type Pynput documentation in this Google, and let me show you the documentation part over here. Let it give to load, and this is the small documentation for this package, and you could see this is the library that is going us to allow to control the and monitor basically input devices that can be the keyboard as well as the mouse. So you can see there is a two section over here saying the handling the mouse and handling the keyboard. So let's see for controlling the keyboard first. Let's go over there, and it is going to give us the reference code over here saying that you have to first import your Pynput, and there is key and a controller. So this is very important. Here we have the key and a controller. If you go to the monitoring section, you could see we'll have the listener. So this is very important. This is going to just collect event until release. So that means this is going to be used to make the keylogger in the case of our section or for this lecture. So first of all, we have to make use of this listener as a controller of this Pynput to just check for this on press and on release attribute, and we'll just join that the listener part or basically any keyboard to our formatting key or basically to our Python shell or console. So first of all, what you need to do is simply use this Pynput and make some functions or the module, and basically based on that functions or the method, we'll just have the listener which will just act like this way. That is, it will just collect event until it is released. So let's see how we can just make this. So first of all, as always, I'll just create the new script. I'll save this script, and let me say this is a bad program.py, and let me just say keylogger.py. Let me just save this in the desktop. Now we have our script ready over here. So let's make some basic program for our keylogger. So first of all, as always, we have to import the module, and we have already installed the Pynput. So we can now make this Pynput, and we want to import keyboard. So first of all, we'll just see for the keyboard. So we are just importing the keyboard from this Pynput. That means we can just control and monitor the action of the keyboard now. So first of all, let me just define one method over here which will be on press. So here I'll just pass key. So what you're gonna do here is we'll just see the action over here which will be printed. So I'll just say key, and let's format this key, and I'll just say pressed. So this will be the output to the user, and let's format this first. So okay, let's format this with the key that is passed to the function. So let's close this on press method now. Now next is on release method. So let's make this on release, and here we are going to pass again the key. So in this we are going to print something that is obviously the key that is to be released. So I'll just say key, and it is now released because this is on release method. So I'll just format this again with the key that has been released. So let's format this. Now here we have to check if we are quitting or not. So there should be some key to quit. So I'll just say key, and if that key is equal to key.esc, which is basically to quit that script. So if it is the key, what you're gonna do is we are just going to print, that is exiting from the keylogger, and let's close this first, and after that we are going to return now false. So what we just did here was we just made this on release, so this should be here, and now we have just printed over here with the formatting that this key has been released. And if this is the case that we just press the key, that is ESC, then it is going to exit and it is going to return a false. But for some convention, we have to first typecast to this through the string. So first of all, we'll just convert this to the string and we'll check that key with this key, if that key is ESC or not. So this is the keyboard key which is to exit. So let's put our listener now. So if you just remember in the documentation, we have this listener right over here. So we have to make use of this listener, but if you see here, it has imported the listener right over here. But what we're gonna do is we have just imported the keyboard. So we have to call this listener from the keyboard. So I'll just say keyboard dot listener. So this is our listener. So in this listener, I'm going to just add some of these attribute, which is onPress is going to call us the onPress method when keyboard is pressed, and when the keyboard is released, then we are going to call again onRelease method, which is done by this controller, and we are going to just alias it as listener, and let's join this listener now, which is basically the way. Okay, so what we just did over here, let's go to the documentation again, and you can see straight over here. Okay, so you can see straight here, this is the way to just collect the event when this is released, basically when this listener event is called. So when there is any event that is pressed on the keyboard or released from the keyboard, this listener is going to be active, and this is going to call onPress and onRelease method, what we just did in this script, and this is going to join us a key, and this is going to return if there is any exit condition. So what we just did here was we just made this Pynput to have the listener injected on this keyboard. So you can do similar in the case of the mouse. So you can see for the mouse documentation right here, and if I just go in the mouse, you can go over here and you can now put some of this code in the listener, on move, on click, on scroll. So now I'm just going to go with the keyboard for. So let's check this first. So let me just save this, and if you see, we are going to run this from the command prompt. So it is in here. So let me just run this command prompt. I'm just going to go first in the desktop because it is in the desktop, and now I have to run this keylogger. So this is keylogger.py, and it is saying there is no keylogger. So what we just did here, okay, we just said keylogger py.py. Let me just go again. So the name was py.py. If I hit enter, now it is saying key.interRelease. So our keylogger is active now. So if I just go to any website, let me say bing.com, and if I just go to the Bing, you should see that it is active right over here. If I press any key, let me just search here with the Google, then you will see that this keylogger will have the Google right here. So we have pressed the G and we have released the G, we have pressed L and again the L, so that means it is going to give us over here, that is the Google. So G has been pressed and released, and again pressed and released. So there is a two action which is going to be handled by this script, on press and on release. When we just press, this is going to be called. When we release the button of the keyboard, this is going to be called. And if we just see that if I just press esc, this is going to be called, that is key.esc, and we just exit out of this script. So this is the way to work with this keylogger. So next thing what you can do over here is some modification. So let me show you one thing that can be annoying over here is when you just run this script again. So let me just run this again, and we have to go again to the desktop, and it is obviously the way to just execute it. So if you see anything you write, you could see that key is pressed, but we want something that is this E or this letter should be outside of this particular quote. What if we want that changes or modification in the keylogger? Let's see how we can just do that, and let me show you what am I talking about over here. So first of all, if I want to just print the key code, so you can do right over here. When you just press that key, you can also print that key. So let's see that if I want key type to be printed, then let's format it first, and it is done with this format function. And now I want the class name, so that means the type. So if you want the type, we have some inbuilt method, the special method, which is going to be class dot and name. So if you do this, this is the special method. So this is going to give us the type of the key. So when I just save this again, and you have to just exit it first, and now again if I just run the same keylogger, now if you it is saying that it is not defined, obviously. So it was because this should be dot over here, not the comma. So let's save this again, and let's go back to our command prompt, and here again let's navigate to that desktop. Let's run our Python keylogger, and now if I just enter any key, you could see what is the key code type here. So everything here is key code. So if I say that if I enter the ctrl, then it is not going to active. If I say x, then you could see that when there is ctrl pressed, it is going to show us the key type is key. But if you press any code from the keyboard, that is showing us that it is key code. So that is one manipulation or modification you can do on your keylogger to check if that key is either a key, that pressed is either a key or key code. If it is the key code, that means it is alphabetical, or if it is a key, that means it is some of these control statements that is pressed in the keyboard. So there can be the one modification. So next thing what we can do here in our keylogger is to get the key name. So let's define another method to get that key name. So I'll just go with this get key name method, and over here let me just pass the key. And now first of all I want to check is instance. So this is important method, and it is going to get us the object and about the key code. So first of all we'll just get the object. We have now keyboard, which is obviously the module of this Pynput, and we are going to get the key code. And let's check this first. If they are equal, then we are going to return the key dot character, only the character, else we are going to return our key. Let's see what we are doing over here. So we are just checking first if that key code, so if you just remember from that manipulation that we just did, this key code was the code that is going to be something like ABCD. So if it is the instance, then we are just returning with that character, else we are getting only the keyboard. So let me just show you what is happening over here. So if I just go again and let me navigate again. Let's run our keylogger. So now, okay, maybe something happened over here. So we haven't saved this, and next thing was we didn't even call over here. Let's format this. Before on release we have to call this get keyname method. So first of all we'll just say keyname, because we have added this get keyname method but we haven't called this, so we have to have first. Okay, let me just close this first. Now here I have to just add the keyname first. So in this keyname I'll just call our get keyname and I'll just pass the key that is pressed, or basically that is when on we release. So next is also to get the keyname. So I'll just get the keyname again in the onPress method, and that is also going to get the key. And after we get the keyname, we are going to format this with the keyname. And let's remove this, or you can simply comment this out. So again here you have to just format it with keyname that we just get from here, and it is also going to be if the string keyname. So it's ESC, then we are exiting from here and we are done over here. So this is the way to get the keyname. Let's save this again and let's see if this works or not. So we're going to just execute it again. So it is showing that we have entered something over here. So now if I enter any key, you could see now we have formatted our result. So instead of just quotation in this character, we have now the simple logic. So you could see if the key has been released or key has been typed and everything. So you can simply go to the Hotmail and okay, let me see Twitter. If I just go to the Twitter login and get some value over here and password, and if I just say login and everything, you could see you'll get everything over here. So it is repeated twice, and if you want only the one key to be seen, you can simply remove that on release code and you could get all of here. So you could see the username over here and the password was typed right here. So this is the simple keylogger that we just built from the Pynput. We just made use of this listener, that is the controller that is going to be handled by this Pynput module, and this is going to call this onPress onRelease method, and based on that we have just formatted, we had to get the keys, and based on that keys we have formatted the keyname, and we just saw how this output looks like. So this is the way to make a simple keylogger. We'll see advanced keylogger in the upcoming lecture. See you in the next one.